Morning, everyone. Thursday morning. Good to see you. And today we're looking at 2 Samuel chapter 1, the second half. And it's a song that David sings about Saul and Jonathan and about his relationship with them. And so I want to pick it up from verse 23. He singing about them, they both died in battle at the hands of the Philistines. He says, "They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. Daughters of Israel, weep for Saul, who clothed you in scarlet and finery, who adorned your garments with ornaments of gold. How the mighty have fallen in battle. Jonathan lies slain on your heights. I grieve for you, Jonathan, my brother. You were very dear to me. Your love for me was wonderful, more wonderful than that of woman. How the mighty have fallen. The weapons of war have perished." And so when I read this, you kind of think to yourself, well, I get David being bummed about Jonathan dying. But Saul was trying to kill him, right? That for like most of the second half of 1 Samuel, it's just David running around and Saul trying to kill him. And the only thing I can come to in looking at this is the reason David is saying it is because he means it. He must actually mean what he's saying, because Saul and Jonathan are dead now. There's no point to prove. Everyone knew Saul was trying to kill him. In fact, early on in this chapter, this Amalekite comes to him and thinks he's going to get into David's good books by saying that he actually killed Saul. A misunderstanding that David didn't actually have anything in his heart towards Saul. And there's a quality about David that I'd like to talk about this morning, where he saw the goodness and the darkness in people. He saw both. Yet, despite that disparity in people, he saw the good and the bad in people, he trusted that God could still do something with them. That's why when he was in the cave at Adullam, when all the sick and distressed and sad and in debt guys came, David could still believe in them and then raise them up to become the mighty men that that God wanted them to be. And I think as human beings, we tend to be very black and white in our view of people. People are either the devil or they're Jesus. This is either my best friend. You remember when you were at school? This is my best friend in the whole world. Or someone is like an absolute idiot and I write them off. And it's amazing to me how quickly we can write off years of friendship because of one incident that happens. All of a sudden, everything that's gone before is written off in a moment because I look at people more as cartoon characters than I see them for who they really are. People are incredibly complex. In Psalm 78:72, God talking about David, it says, "David shepherded them with integrity of heart, and with skillful hands he led them." And part of these skillful hands that David had in leading people was he didn't see people as cartoon characters, as absolute good or absolute bad. He understood that everyone has got failures, everyone's got weaknesses, everybody's got strengths, everyone's got places in which they play. And I wonder if this isn't why that view of people isn't why in 1 Samuel 13 that God, speaking about David, says that he's a man after his own heart. Because when God looks at David, he sees the same thing inside of his heart, the way Jesus looked at the world. And he saw us as, God sees us as something worth rescuing. We are a mess, we're a bunch of failures, yet God sends his son Jesus. And I think when David looked at people, the reason he was able to look at people like that, and this is the challenge for us, the reason David could look at people like that and have grace for people's weaknesses was because he knew that he was no better than anyone else. In fact, just later on in this book, David kills a guy called Uriah the Hittite, sends him into battle and leaves him at the front of the battle to get killed first because David has slept with this guy's wife, Bathsheba, and she's pregnant. And David doesn't know a way out, so he just kills the husband off. And then eventually ends up marrying this woman. David didn't expect perfection from others because he knew he himself wasn't perfect. And this is something, guys, I think we've got to understand this as Christians. I don't lead people because I'm better than people. I'm smarter, I'm richer, I have more influence, more charisma. None of that. I lead people and you lead people. And God has called you to your sphere because God has given it to you. And there's a huge freedom that comes with that because now all of a sudden I've got both grace for myself and I've got grace for others. And if I'm in that space, I can be quick to apologize. I don't have to keep justifying myself. I don't take things personally because I understand that we are all in process and we are all growing and we are all changing. Now you might be saying, yes, John, agreed, whatever. But can I ask you a question? What about our government at the moment? And all the things. I think we expect our government to be either absolutely right or we think they're a bunch of idiots. Is there space for them to not fully understand? Is there space that some of them perhaps do have a poor agendas in their heart? Yet, I'm not going to judge them because I know that before God, I'm sitting before God. I wouldn't be doing any better myself. I would be just as prone to make mistakes. And so I'm going to go to God with these things and trust that He knows what He's doing. In our workplace, with our colleagues, some working really hard, maybe some cutting corners. I don't know what the issues are. For moms and dads, putting burdens on our children that they can't carry. I've looked at our kids at the moment doing online schooling, and they're having a hard time. Monday, it was such a write-off, we just wrote the day off. For the first hour, everything went pear-shaped, so we just wrote the whole day off, and we watched movies, and we hung out a bit together. I had some work to do, Cindy had some work to do, but we just took the pressure off the girls, and we're like, hey, just relax, it's going to be okay. Because no one's perfect. We don't have to hold others to an impossible standard, because Jesus didn't hold us to an impossible standard. Jesus came and He forgave us when we'd sinned against Him. Just like David did with Saul. David wasn't just blowing smoke out of his backside here, trying to play to the crowd by singing the song about Saul. He genuinely grieved the fact that Saul was no longer there, because he understood the potential that was lost. He still believed in Saul, despite what Saul had done to him. And so can I encourage us to do the same? Keep our heads up, keep trusting God, and keep loving people and not take things personally, not allow it to get into our hearts. Allow God to forgive us and then forgive others as He's forgiven us.